Hi guys, welcome to this video. My name's Andrew Wells and today we're going to be talking about getting ready to go out and do some night photography. Okay, so I want to talk about night photography because we'll get into that time of year now where the evenings are getting darker and a lot of people put their camera away. So I want to talk about actually getting out there and taking photographs. So we're going to do quite a few different videos on night photography. I'm not really going to talk too much about the sort of the technical aspect in this particular video because I believe that every different type of night photography will require different settings. So we'll go into more details in those videos depending on what we're actually shooting. But what I wanted to talk about is actually just really getting ready for night photography and some things that you'll probably always need, and there's some things that you'll probably need and you haven't really thought about. So I kind of just wanted to do this very quick video to try and give you guys an idea of how you should be thinking and the kind of stuff you should be taking with you. Now, it is night photography, so the one thing about night photography is that we've got a lot less light around us. It's not like during the day where we've got lots of light. So the three things that control our exposure, which is the aperture and how wide the aperture is, the shutter, and also the ISO. So those three things can control how much light comes into the camera. So we're going to be looking at those in terms of settings. Now, the one thing I always try and do when it comes to ISO, I prefer my ISO to be on the best quality there is. So I'm going to try and stick to ISO 100 if I can. Now that means we're not going to get much grain and it's going to keep things nice and fine. If you've got noise reduction within your camera, and I know some Nikon cameras have this, they have a noise reduction feature, and you might be shooting something like stars, then you need to be turning that feature off because otherwise it's actually going to think the stars are noise and get rid of them. Okay, so in your camera you need to be switching that off. The other thing is we'll actually probably, or we will be, using a tripod. Now again, a lot of new lenses, this one in particular has as well, we have image stabilization on the Canon, or it's vibration control or vibration reduction on the Nikon. Turn that off, because again, if you stick your camera on a tripod and you've got that on, then it's going to try and to be adjusting for what it thinks is camera movement, and of course there won't be any because you're on a tripod, and so it can actually confuse it and actually make blurred images. So whenever you've got your camera on a tripod, turn off that vibration reduction or noise reduction, vibration reduction or your image stabilization on your lens. Not all lenses have it, but if you have, switch it off. Okay, in terms of settings, I probably will shoot manually. In fact, I will shoot manually because I want complete control. Your light meter is going to be fooled by what light is out there. So it might be a good guide to go from your light meter and see where that actually gives you in terms of settings, but we'll then manually adjust that. Now, you could do it in priority mode, I guess, and do some compensation, but I like to just do things manually. I know exactly where all my settings are and what's being controlled. We might even use bulb mode. Bulb mode is a setting on your camera where you can actually leave your shutter open for as long as you want it open. But that way you have to actually count it as well. So if you want an exposure of more than 30 seconds, or if you actually want to just control how many seconds your exposure is open, then we use the bulb setting for actually doing that. But generally I'll be shooting manual setting, and hopefully our exposures will be somewhere between a second and 30 seconds, and we'll be able to control that in the camera. Okay, so that's enough about camera settings. Just let's have a look at some of the accessories we might actually use when going out doing night photography. Now, one of the most important things you'll need with night photography is a tripod. So that's a good old tripod. The tripod I prefer to use is a little bit more sturdy than the cheap ones you can get. So yes, you can get tripods for sort of £15–20. They don't cost very much, but then in my mind they're just a little bit more flexy, and I don't like that. I prefer my tripod nice and steady. We're in the winter months, you might get wind around, things like that, that can all do it. A nice decent tripod like this, you might be talking £70–80. You don't have to be spending hundreds of pounds on them, but this will certainly do it good enough for you. They also come with little features, so although the metal parts of it are actually quite cold to touch, and even today I'm indoors at the moment, but that's quite cold to touch. So just having these foam bits on there, it's nice little features, means you can hold your tripod, and when it's really cold, it's not going to get you really cold as well. And really a head that's going to give you lots of flexibility on it and allow you to move around quite a lot. So tripod's quite important. If you're travelling around, you don't want a big bulky tripod. There is always alternatives if you're just going to be doing a few little night shots, and it could be just something as simple as a mini tripod. You can get things like the Gorilla type tripods, something like that that will actually enable you to get some good photos, but you need to be able to keep your camera steady. And I've even taken photos at night and put my camera on a wall and things like that and got away with it, but we don't want any movement in the camera at all. So what else might we need? The other thing we might need is to be able to control the camera without actually touching it. So that's where a cable release would come in. And this basically plugs into the camera, and it means when we're on the tripod, we're not pressing the shutter, and so we're actually minimise any movement whatsoever. We're actually controlling it by pressing the button on the cable release. The cable release also comes with a little feature on it where you can actually push the button in and you can lock the shutter open. So that's really handy if you're using the bulb setting on the camera. That way you can actually just leave it open, you're not touching it, and then when your time's up, you just press it again and release it, and it releases the shutter. So it just saves you actually trying to hang on to the button all the time while you're counting. So cable release in my mind is really, really important. You can again get away with it without a cable release, not necessarily with the bulb settings, but just normal photography if you use something like the self timer. So if you put on there a 2-second self timer, you can then press the button, it takes a photograph a couple of seconds later after you've actually let go of the button. Okay, so what else might we need to think about? We're obviously shooting at night, so one of the things we need to be doing is seeing things. My camera is very fortunate, it has a light on the dial, so I can actually see the settings. Not all cameras are like that. So you might actually want to be looking and looking at it. So the answer would be a torch. Yeah, you would think. So you could just use a simple torch. This one here is just an LED torch, and that will allow you to see the settings. However, that's not what I would actually use myself. These are okay for doing things like painting with light and that kind of thing. What I actually use is a red light. Now this is just basically a bicycle light, so you can see it flicks all over it, but one of the things it does, it stays permanently on. Now that will give me enough illumination in terms of being able to see what's going on, see on the ground if I drop anything, see where I'm going, set things up. However, what a red light will do is not spoil your night vision. So it's very important that once we adjust our eyes to being outside, what you then don't want to do is stick on a really bright torch and it ruins your night vision. So I always tend to use a red torch when I'm actually out and about taking photographs. Okay, the other thing to bear in mind is actually we're shooting at night, it's winter, and we really need to dress appropriately, and that's something that people do tend to forget about. When we run our night workshops, we often get people come up on those and they forget that it's going to get really cold later on and end up just getting really cold fingers and feeling numb and not feeling generally very happy. And if your mood isn't right for it, then you're going to give up early and go home and you're not going to get the shots you want. So my recommendation is always go armed with these, which is gloves, hat, scarf, etc. Doesn't mean you have to wear them, but have them handy. Because they're the kind of things that is going to keep you in a good mood and a general mood. But you still want to be able to use your camera as well. So one of the pairs of gloves I actually have, these special ones are quite thin, they're thermal, but they also have grippy bits on them as well. So that means that I can actually wear these and I can still use the camera and get all the settings on it. So that might be something you want to think about investing. You could use fingerless gloves, but I just find that the ends of my fingers still go a bit cold. So I think they're the best solution in terms of that. Think about how long you can actually be out there for. If you're going to be out there for a few hours, maybe you want to do something to make you warm up. My simple solution, flask of coffee. You could just go to a local coffee shop if you want, but just having a flask of coffee with you or a flask of hot chocolate is a really good idea in terms of taking with you, because then it just allows you to take a break, warm up a bit, carry on taking photographs. The final thing I'll talk about is we talked about lights earlier on, and I mentioned the fact that you can take your light and that sort of thing, but these are quite good for light painting. So if you're going to be somewhere that's not illuminated, but perhaps you want to illuminate a different part of it, you could use small torches like that. Something I always have in the car is a big torch, and again these are really handy just for painting with light and doing that. So we're going to have some fun this year. We're doing some light painting, and we'll do a video on that in terms of how we're going to actually balance out shooting stars and painting with light as well, so we're not left with a silhouette in terms of the picture. Okay, so there you go, just a few sort of quick things in terms of being prepared to go out and do night photography. Wrap up warm, go out, have fun, don't be afraid to actually get out there and enjoy yourselves. If you want to come along one of our workshops, we'll be doing those, running those over in the southwest, which means you can go out as a group, which is always good fun, but if not, find a friend to go along with you. Be safe when you're out there, but you know, above all, go and have some fun and practice taking some pictures. Okay, that's it for now. Thanks for watching.